Hello friends, welcome to Engineering Online. Today we will discuss a very important point in engineering mechanics which is known as composition of forces. So this composition of forces is nothing but an addition of multiple forces to get its equivalent force which is known as resultant. So this composition of forces is achieved through three different methods that are parallelogram law of force addition, then the triangle law of force addition and the polygon law of force addition. So in which the very first is the parallelogram law of force addition, which is the most popular and prominently used to determine the resultant. So this theorem states that if the two forces acting simultaneously on a body at a point are represented in magnitude and direction by the two adjacent sides of a parallelogram, then their resultant is represented in magnitude and direction by the diagonal of a parallelogram, which passes through a point of intersection of two sides representing the forces. So to understand this theorem, first let's consider the two vectors. Let one is the G and another vector is F vector. Those are acting to a point P. So we need to draw these two forces as the two sides of a parallelogram. So to complete the parallelogram, we need to draw a parallel line to G and equal in dimension, similarly parallel line to F and similar to the F. So as per the statement of the theorem, this diagonal is representing the result. Another law is the triangle law, which is sometimes also known as a corollary of a parallelogram law. States that if we have two vectors like F and G are represented in the form of two sides of a triangle, then the closing side of a triangle become its resultant. For example, in the same problem, if I consider G as the first vector, then from the head of a G, I need to draw second vector, that is F, and as per the statement of a triangle law, this closing side is nothing but a resultant. So here, if you observe closely, then you can understand this triangle law is nothing but a half section of a parallelogram law. So let's understand this comes with actual problem. So here in this problem, we have two forces P and the Q, magnitude 80 Newton and the 40 Newton, acting at point O. So this point is O. Force P acts horizontally and the force Q acts at an angle of 60 degree counterclockwise from P. So this is 60 degree, Q is acting at counterclockwise. So our objective is to determine the resultant R. So here we have two forces P and the Q. So the two theorems, parallelogram law and the triangle law, are most suitable to determine the resultant. So let's understand one. So these two theorems can be solved graphically as well as analytically. So first see the graphical approach of parallelogram law of force addition. Here we have two forces. So first take a graph paper, or you can even draw it on the plain paper. So here I have taken a graph paper which is having a unit dimensions. So very important, and the first step is to define the scale. Because the unit of force is a Newton and the unit of a dimensions or the diagram is always centimeter, meter or mm. So it is necessary to define the scale. So as I have a unit dimension, so I have taken 10 Newton is equal to 2 units. Next step is to draw x and y axis to start our diagram. Start the diagram from the origin, that is O. So my first vector in the diagram is 80 Newton, and as per the scale, it is approximately 16 units. 16 units on this graph paper. So I have drawn this P 80 Newton with the scale. Then to draw Q, we need to use protractor. The angle between P and the Q is 60 degree. So mark 60 degree and draw this 40 Newton with the appropriate scale, and the angle between these two is the 60 degree. So to complete the parallelogram law, we need to draw a parallel to the Q with the same dimension and parallel to the P with the same dimensions. And as per the statement of this theorem, the diagonal, this diagonal is nothing but a resultant. R is resultant. So to get the magnitude of resultant R, simply measure the length of this R, multiply it by the scale, and you will get the value of R. So here this R, if you measure the all blocks, it is approximately 21 to 22 blocks. So this R comes 105.8 Newton. Another important parameter in the diagram is the angle of inclination of resultant R, that is phi. So this phi is also we can measure from the diagram. So put the protractor, see it is almost coming in between 19 to 20 degree of, from the measurement it will come 19.1 degree. So through the graphical approach of the parallelogram law, we are getting R as 105.8 Newton, while the angle of inclination of R as a 19.1 degree. Same problem we can solve analytically. Here we have formula R is equal to under root P square plus Q square plus 2 PQ cos theta, in which theta is the angle between P and the Q, means two consecutive vectors, which is 60 degree in our problem. So put the values in this formula. P is 80 square plus 40 square plus 2 times 80 into 40 cos of 60. By calculation you will get the value of R almost equal to 105.8 Newton. There may be some difference will come in the decimal, but the main value 105 will remain same. Another thing is the angle of inclination phi. This angle of inclination can be obtained by this formula, that tan phi is equal to Q sin theta upon P plus Q cos theta. So again put the values, it is 40 sin 60 upon 80 plus 40 cos 60. Just by simplifying it and by taking the tan inverse, you will get the value of phi as 19.1 degree, which is exactly same that we through the graphical approach. The same problem we can solve by triangle law. So triangle law is also solved by a graphical approach as well as analytical approach. So let's first see the graphical approach. So in a graphical approach, first step is to define the scale, then draw x and y axis in which we will get origin, and from the origin we will draw our first vector with the appropriate scale. So first vector is 80 Newton, so I have drawn it with the appropriate scale. Now put the protractor at this point and mark angle 60 degree. So this angle is a 60 degree, and draw vector with appropriate scale. As per the statement of a triangle law, if we draw two vectors as the two sides of a triangle, then the closing side become its resultant, and the direction of arrow is always from the tail of the first vector to the head or the tip of last vector. So this R, magnitude of R, if you measured it on the diagram, again it will definitely come 105.8 Newton. Now the angle of inclination you can measure by using the protractor, which is almost in between 19 to 20 degree. So this phi is 19.1 degree. So try it, draw it with appropriate scale, and definitely you will get these answers. We can solve this problem by analytical method, in which we have resultant R is equal to under root P square plus Q square minus 2 PQ cos 180 minus theta, in which you can observe a nominal difference between the two analytical formulas. In the parallelogram law, we have positive symbol here, and instead of 180 minus theta, we simply having cos theta there. We have minus, and this angle is 180 minus theta. So 180 minus theta, what it is representing? So it is the interior angle. So we are simply subtracting the 60 degree, that is theta, from 180. So put this value. So it is 80 square plus 40 square minus 2 times 80 into 40 cos of 120. Cos of 120. So by simplifying, you will get this value as 105.8 Newton. But in this case, to determine this angle phi, we need to consider the sine rule. You know, as per the sine rule, we can write it as one side of the triangle upon sine of angle between remaining two sides. Means here R and opposite angle is 120 degree, that is angle between the remaining two sides, is equal to 40 Newton, that means this side Q, upon sine of angle means opposite angle or the angle included between the remaining two sides, that is phi. So substitute the value. R is 105.8 upon sine of 120 is equal to 40 upon sine of phi. So by rearranging and taking the sine inverse, you will get the value of phi as 19.1 degree. So here you will observe the value that we are getting through the analytical method or by the graphical method by using two different methods are exactly same. So this is all about the composition of forces by using parallelogram law and the triangle law of force addition. I hope you understand the two approaches. Try to solve more problems to get familiar with this concept. Thank you very much.